All right, let's get right into it. If you've ever tried building a modern AI agent, you know things can get complicated really fast. But what if I told you the answer to all that complexity isn't some shiny new thing, but actually a rock-solid software pattern that's been around for decades? Today, we are breaking down the three-tier architecture for AI agents.
You know how it goes. It always starts with a simple, brilliant idea. But then, reality hits. You hook your agent up to a database. It works. Awesome. But then you think, hey, let's add an API for our CRM. And then another one to send emails. And another to post updates to Slack. Before you know it, you're completely trapped in what developers grimly call integration hell.
And this is what that web looks like in real life. Every single new tool means a new SDK you've got to learn and somehow manage. Every connection needs its own authentication dance. You've got API keys, OAuth tokens, the whole shebang. And these connections? They're often super brittle. You know, they break if you so much as look at them wrong. So every new feature you add just pulls the knots of the tangle even tighter.
But here's the twist. This is not a new problem. Not at all. In fact, the world of web development ran into this exact same wall and solved this kind of complexity decades ago. The solution has literally been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
So let's rewind. Way back in 1992, a pattern called the three-tier architecture was formalized. And by the 2000s, it became the undisputed go-to standard for building web applications that could actually scale and not fall apart. I mean, pretty much every website or app you use today is built on this battle-tested principle. Its real power? It's all about simplicity and separating your concerns. Now, this is where it gets really cool. Look how cleanly we can map this classic pattern to our modern AI agents. The classic presentation tier, that's what the user sees. It maps perfectly to the agent's presentation layer. That's how it delivers results. The application tier, which is all the business logic, becomes the agent's processing layer. That's where all the thinking happens. And finally, the data tier, well, that's the data source layer, where the agent goes to get all its information. Okay, so let's break this down piece by piece, starting from the ground up with layer 1, the data source layer. This is how your agent connects to the outside world. Seriously, think of it like the agent's senses, its connection to APIs, to databases, to any raw information it needs to actually do its job.
So when you're designing this layer, there are 4 absolutely critical questions you have to answer. First, how fresh does your data need to be? You know, a real-time stock ticker is a whole different beast than a weekly report. Second, how are you going to handle authentication for every single source? Third, how will you normalize all the different kinds of data coming in, from clean, structured JSON to messy, unstructured documents? And finally, and this one is huge, how is your agent going to stay resilient when an API inevitably hits its rate limit or just goes down?
All right, moving up the stack to the heart of the whole system. Layer 2, the processing layer. This is the brain of the entire operation. It's where the large language model does its heavy lifting and reasoning, it's where tasks get orchestrated, and it's where the agent's memory and state are all managed.
Now, the core idea here, which Anthropic talks about, is something called the augmented LLM. This is not just a plain old language model. This is an LLM that's been supercharged with 3 key capabilities. You've got retrieval, which gives it access to outside knowledge. You've got tools, which let it actually take actions in the world. And you've got memory, which lets it keep track of things and learn from past conversations. This is the fundamental building block of any modern agent.
Building this brain requires some really careful thought. You've got to pick the right model for the right task. You don't always need the most powerful, most expensive one. You should probably start with a simple orchestration pattern before you dive headfirst into complicated multi-agent systems. You absolutely have to manage your context window efficiently to keep your token usage and costs under control. You need a solid strategy for both short-term session memory and long-term memory. And of course, the big one, always keep an eye on the cost. And finally, we arrive at the top, layer 3, the presentation layer. Because let's be honest, all the brilliant data retrieval and processing in the world is completely useless if the results don't get to the right people, in the right way, at the right time. This layer is all about the human at the end of the line.
So here you really have to think about your end user. What format do they need? Is it a dashboard, an email, a quick Slack message? And who's the audience? A data scientist might want all the raw data, but a manager just wants a high-level summary. Is this thing an urgent, real-time alert, or can it wait for a daily digest? A lot of the time, you'll need to send the same insight to multiple places at once. And here's a key design choice: figuring out when the agent needs to just pause and ask a human for approval before it does something critical.
Okay, so that's all the theory. But how does this stuff actually work in practice?
Let's take a look at a fantastic real-world example, an open-source clinical trial tracker agent that puts this entire three-tier architecture to work.
And this table just lays it out so perfectly. It really shows off that separation of concerns. Down in layer 1, the data layer, the agent just does one thing. It fetches information from the clinicaltrials.gov API. Then in layer 2, the processing layer, it uses a simple Google Sheet as its memory to remember which trials it's supposed to be tracking. And finally, up in layer 3, the presentation layer, it delivers updates through Gmail and creates tickets in Linear. See how each layer is totally independent? The data source has no idea that a Google Sheet is being used for memory, and the memory doesn't know anything about sending an email. It's clean.
And the orchestration logic, which lives in layer 2, is what ties it all together. So here's the flow. The process starts in layer 2 by reading its watch list from that Google Sheet. Then it reaches down into layer 1 to check for any updates and pull new results. Then everything comes back up to layer 2, which creates a summary and updates its memory. And finally, the process finishes by pushing the results up to layer 3, sending that email and creating those tickets. It's just a beautiful logical flow across the different tiers.
And you know, the real beauty of this whole architecture is that it scales. This isn't just for a single one-man band agent. These same principles apply perfectly to much more complex multi-agent systems, where you might have a whole team of specialized agents all working together. You can think of it like building a superstar team. You have your orchestrator, that's the team lead, living in layer 2 and delegating all the tasks. It assigns work to a scout agent who lives down in layer 1 and is a total pro at data retrieval. You've got a memory agent and an analyst agent working inside layer 2 to manage the state and clean up the data. And then you have a dispatcher agent up in layer 3 who's an expert at delivering the final results. Each agent gets a clear job in a specific layer, which makes the whole system modular and so much easier to maintain.
So here's the most important takeaway. Building robust, scalable, and maintainable AI agents, it isn't some kind of magic. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's really just about applying these timeless principles of good software design that have been proven to work for decades.
This framework gives you a really powerful way to think about and structure your own projects. So, take a hard look at what you're building and ask yourself this. Which of these three tiers, data, processing, or presentation, needs the most attention right now? The answer to that question might just be the key to unlocking your agent's true potential.